The first-class cabin fell silent as Sophia Chen, a flight attendant with 10 years of experience, watched her career disintegrate before her eyes. Just moments ago, she'd denied a meal to a seemingly ordinary white teenager, only to discover the girl was the daughter of Victoria Blackwell, not just a passenger but the newly appointed CEO of Skyline Airways, and now standing before her, seething with rage. "You have exactly 30 seconds to explain why you discriminated against my daughter before I make sure you never work in this industry again," Victoria hissed, not knowing this confrontation would change both their lives forever. Could Sophia survive this nightmare at 35,000 feet? Before we dive into this shocking story, let me know where you're watching from. If you believe in justice and standing up against discrimination in all forms, hit that like and subscribe button to stay updated on more true stories that will leave you speechless. Sophia Chen arrived at San Francisco International Airport 3 hours before the scheduled departure of Skyline Airways Flight 272 to London Heathrow. The early June morning brought a gentle fog rolling over the runway, typical for the Bay Area this time of year. She straightened her navy blue uniform, adjusted her perfectly pinned hair, and took a deep breath before entering the crew security line. Today marked her 10th year with Skyline, and despite the countless flights she'd worked, she still felt a flutter of excitement before each journey across the Atlantic. "Morning, Chen," called Roger Miller, the chief purser for today's flight. "Ready for another smooth ride to London?" Sophia nodded with a practiced smile, though she immediately sensed something different in Roger's demeanor. His usual relaxed posture seemed tense, and his eyes darted nervously around the crew lounge as more flight attendants filed in. "Is everything okay?" Sophia asked, pulling her roller bag alongside his as they walked toward the briefing room. Roger lowered his voice. "Word is we've got a VIP on today's flight. Big one. Apparently the new CEO is flying incognito to assess service standards." Sophia's stomach tightened. Skyline had recently appointed its first female CEO, Victoria Blackwell, after a highly publicized search. The industry blogs had painted her as a ruthless efficiency expert who had cut hundreds of jobs at her previous airline. "Any idea what she looks like?" Sophia asked. "No official word. Could be any passenger. That's why management wants us on. Our absolute best behavior. Every napkin folded perfectly. Every smile genuine." Roger's voice carried an edge Sophia rarely heard from the normally laid-back purser. During the pre-flight briefing, the tension was palpable. The captain, a veteran named David Wilson, spent an unusual amount of time discussing service standards rather than flight operations. The head purser gave an extended talk about proper addressing of passengers and meal service protocols. While such reminders were normal, today they felt charged with unspoken pressure. As the briefing concluded, Sophia checked her assignment. First-class cabin. She typically rotated through all cabins, but first class was her favorite. The smaller passenger count allowed for more personalized service, something she prided herself on. Walking down the jet bridge toward the gleaming Airbus A350, Sophia couldn't help but think about how far she'd come. Her parents had immigrated from Taiwan before she was born, working double shifts at their small restaurant in Oakland to provide for her education. "Excellence is not optional," her father would say, a mantra that pushed Sophia through college and into a career that let her see the world while making her parents proud. Yet despite her impeccable service record and consistent commendations, she'd been passed over for promotion to purser twice, watching as less experienced white colleagues advanced. Sophia was arranging welcome champagne flutes when her tablet pinged with an alert. A last-minute passenger change had moved someone from economy to first class. The name read Lily Blackwell. Sophia froze, staring at the surname. Could this be related to the new CEO? She quickly checked the passenger list again, finding a Victoria Blackwell still listed in economy, seat 42B. A system glitch had apparently separated what might be a mother and daughter. "Heads up," whispered Jasmine Torres, a fellow flight attendant assigned to business class. "The reservation desk just called. They wanted to make sure we know there's been a seat change, but they didn't flag any relationship between the passengers. Something feels off." Sophia nodded, grateful for the warning but increasingly uneasy. If the CEO was traveling with family, why wouldn't they be seated together? And if she was truly here to evaluate service, separating from her daughter might give her an opportunity to observe different cabins. The first-class passengers began boarding, among them a tall, broad-shouldered man in an expensive suit who barely acknowledged Sophia as she offered him champagne. His boarding pass identified him as Jackson Williams, a banking executive according to his frequent flyer profile. He settled into seat 2A with the practiced ease of someone who lived his life in first class. 20 minutes into boarding, a teenage girl with long blonde hair and designer clothes approached the first-class cabin. Checking her boarding pass, Sophia confirmed this was Lily Blackwell, now assigned to seat 3C. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Blackwell," Sophia said with her warmest smile. "May I show you to your seat and offer you a pre-departure beverage?" The girl barely glanced at Sophia. "Whatever. I'll have a Diet Coke with lime, not lemon. If you put lemon in it, I'll need a new one." Sophia maintained her professional demeanor despite the girl's rudeness. "Of course. I'll bring that right away." As she prepared the requested drink, Sophia felt someone watching her. Looking up, she caught Williams staring at her with a smirk. "They really let anyone work first class these days," he said just loud, enough for her to hear. "When I started flying, it was only American girls up front. You know, real Americans." Sophia felt heat rise to her cheeks but kept her expression neutral. This wasn't the first racist comment she'd endured, and she suspected it wouldn't be the last. She placed Lily's Diet Coke with lime on a tray and delivered it without acknowledging Williams' remark. The departure time came and went with the captain announcing a 30-minute delay due to passenger processing issues. Sophia used the time to double-check the meal orders and special requests. That's when she noticed something odd. There were 15 first-class passengers but only 14 standard meal options and one special meal that had been pre-ordered. Her friend Marcus Johnson, the first officer on today's flight and one of the few black pilots at Skyline, passed through the galley on his final cabin check. "Everything good, Soph?" he asked quietly. "Just the usual pre-flight jitters with a VIP on board," she replied, keeping her voice down. "Is it true? Is the CEO really on this flight?" Marcus glanced around and nodded slightly. "That's the rumor in the cockpit. Captain got a personal call from operations. Apparently, this is her first official flight inspection since taking over. Between us, I've heard she's tough on minority staff. 2 of my academy buddies who worked at her previous airline got performance reviews that seemed, let's say, selectively harsh." Before Sophia could ask more questions, the final boarding call sounded, and Marcus had to return to the cockpit. The remaining passengers hurried aboard, including a striking middle-aged woman, who walked purposefully down the aisle toward economy without glancing at the first-class cabin. As the aircraft doors closed and they prepared for pushback, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that this routine London flight was about to become anything but ordinary. She was now responsible for serving both an entitled teenager who might be the CEO's daughter and a racist businessman who seemed to have a problem with her very existence. As the engines roared to life and the massive Airbus began to taxi, Sophia took a deep breath, steeling herself for what might be the most challenging 12 hours of her career. 2 hours into the flight, the first-class cabin had settled into the comfortable rhythm of international travel. Sophia moved gracefully between the galley and passenger seats, ensuring that each traveler had everything they needed. Despite the earlier tension, she maintained her professional demeanor, a skill honed through years of dealing with difficult situations at 35,000 feet. The meal service was approaching, and Sophia had already laid out the premium white tablecloths and prepared the appetizer trays. She checked her tablet again, reviewing the special meal request. A kosher meal had been pre-ordered for seat 2A, Jackson Williams. According to the system, this request had been made 3 weeks ago when he booked his ticket. As Sophia began serving the appetizers, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she found Marcus, the first officer, who had stepped out of the cockpit during his break. "How's it going out here?" he asked quietly. "Managing," Sophia replied with a tight smile. "Though our friend in 2A has made several comments about foreigners taking American jobs, the usual." Marcus shook his head. You'd think people paying thousands for a ticket would have better manners. Just wanted to give you a heads up that the captain received another call from headquarters asking about service quality. They're definitely monitoring this flight closely. Sophia thanked him for the warning as he returned to the cockpit. She continued serving, trying to ignore the way Williams deliberately avoided eye contact when accepting his appetizer, or how he spoke over her when she explained the menu options. When Sophia reached Lily Blackwell's seat, the teenager was scrolling through her phone, seemingly oblivious to the fact that electronic devices should be in airplane mode. "Ms. Blackwell, would you like to start with the smoked salmon or the burrata salad?" Sophia asked. Lily looked up with a bored expression. "Neither. I want the kosher meal." Sophia hesitated. "I'm sorry, but we only have one kosher meal on board, and it's been pre-ordered by another passenger." "So? I want it. I'm sure it's better than the regular options," Lily insisted, her voice rising slightly. "I apologize, but special meals need to be requested at least 24 hours before departure. We have excellent chef-designed alternatives that I'm happy to recommend," Sophia explained patiently. Lily's eyes narrowed. "Do you know who I am? Just get me the kosher meal." At that moment, Williams looked over with interest, clearly eavesdropping on the conversation. "I believe that's my meal she's referring to," he said with a smirk. "I specifically ordered it when I booked my ticket." Sophia found herself in an impossible situation. Company policy was clear. Pre-ordered special meals were reserved for the passengers who requested them, yet she also knew that customer satisfaction, especially in first class, was paramount. "Ms. Blackwell, perhaps you'd enjoy our chef's seafood selection. It's a specialty on our London route," Sophia suggested, trying to find a solution. "No," Lily said flatly. "I want the kosher meal. Why are you giving it to him instead of me? Is it because he's black?" she added in a lower voice, but still loud enough for Williams to hear. Sophia was stunned by the accusation, especially given Williams' earlier racist remarks toward her. The irony wasn't lost on her. Williams, for his part, appeared momentarily caught off guard, before his expression shifted to one of calculated interest. "I'm just following our meal service protocol, Ms. Blackwell," Sophia explained, maintaining her composure. "Mr. Williams pre-ordered this special meal weeks ago, and we only carry the exact number of special meals that have been requested." "This is ridiculous," Lily huffed. "I'm going to talk to someone about this." With that, she unbuckled her seatbelt and stormed off toward the economy cabin. Sophia served Williams his kosher meal, which he accepted with a mock, gracious nod. "Interesting how some people think they can get whatever they want just because of who they are," he remarked, "or who their parents are." The comment sent a chill down Sophia's spine. Did Williams know something about Lily that she didn't? When meal service concluded, Sophia documented the incident in the flight log as required by company policy. Jasmine passed through the first-class cabin and paused near Sophia. "Everything okay?" "I saw the Blackwell girl storm back to economy," she whispered. "She wanted the kosher meal that was pre-ordered by another passenger. When I explained our policy, she wasn't happy," Sophia replied. Jasmine bit her lip. "Be careful, I overheard some of the crew talking. That girl might be related to someone important." What would you have done in Sophia's position? Would you have broken company policy to please an entitled teenager? Comment number 1, if you believe Sophia was right to follow protocol, or number 2, if you think she should have given Lily the meal she wanted. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you believe in standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. The question remains, what exactly was Lily doing when she stormed off to economy class? And who was she really going to complain to? The next few minutes would change Sophia's life forever, but not in the way anyone could have predicted. Sophia continued her duties in the first-class cabin, trying to ignore the unsettled feeling in her stomach. The transatlantic flight had reached its cruising altitude of 37,000 feet, the massive Airbus cutting through the night sky at nearly 600 miles per hour. Outside the windows, nothing but darkness and distant stars. Inside, the soft cabin lighting created an atmosphere of luxury and calm, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within Sophia. 40 minutes had passed since Lily Blackwell had stormed off to economy. The girl hadn't returned to her first-class seat, and Sophia found herself checking the cabin entrance more frequently than necessary. The other passengers had settled in, some watching movies on their screens, others already drifting to sleep under premium blankets. Jackson Williams nursed a glass of 18-year-old scotch, occasionally glancing in Sophia's direction with a knowing smirk. "Expecting someone?" he asked when he caught her looking toward the curtain separating first class from business. Sophia offered a professional smile. "Just ensuring all passengers have what they need, sir. Can I refresh your drink?" Williams declined with a wave of his hand, but the smug expression remained. "I'd worry more about yourself than my drink if I were you." Before Sophia could respond, the curtain parted. A woman stepped through, the same striking figure Sophia had noticed boarding late and heading to economy. Now, in the better lighting of first class, her features were unmistakably similar to Lily's, though with the sharpened edges that come with age and authority. She wore a tailored charcoal suit that exuded power, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto Sophia immediately. "Are you the senior cabin attendant for this section?" the woman demanded, loud, enough that several passengers looked up from their entertainment screens. Sophia nodded, straightening her posture. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Sophia Chen, your first-class cabin attendant. How may I help you?" "I need to speak with you immediately about an incident involving my daughter," the woman said, her voice carrying through the cabin. "It seems we have a serious issue of discriminatory treatment on this aircraft." Sophia felt her professional mask beginning to crack. "Perhaps we could discuss this in the galley, ma'am, for privacy." "No," the woman replied firmly. "I believe this should be addressed here and now. My daughter was denied a meal that was instead given to another passenger. I want to understand why." The entire first-class cabin had gone silent. Even those with headphones had removed them, the promise of mid-flight drama too enticing to ignore. Williams had set down his scotch and was watching with undisguised interest. "Ma'am, as I explained to your daughter, special meals must be pre-ordered, and Mr. Williams in 2A had requested the kosher meal when he booked his ticket. We only carry the exact number of special meals that have been requested," Sophia explained, keeping her voice steady. The woman's eyes narrowed. "Let me be very clear about who I am. My name is Victoria Blackwell. As of last month, I am the Chief Executive Officer of Skyline Airways." She pulled out a company ID card with the executive insignia, holding it up for Sophia and anyone else watching to see. "And what I just witnessed was a clear case of racial discrimination against my daughter." Sophia felt as though the cabin pressure had suddenly dropped. The new CEO was not just on the flight, she was standing before her, making a public accusation of racism. The implications were devastating. "Ms. Blackwell, I assure you that race had nothing to do with my decision," Sophia said, fighting to keep her voice from trembling. "I was simply following company protocol regarding pre-ordered special meals." Victoria's laugh was short and cold. "Protocol? Let me tell you about protocol, Miss Chen. Protocol is ensuring that all passengers are treated equally, regardless of their race. My white daughter was denied a meal that was given to a black passenger. Those are the facts." The cruel irony of being accused of anti-white racism by a white woman, especially after enduring Williams's racist comments earlier, was not lost on Sophia. She opened her mouth to explain that Williams had pre-ordered the meal weeks in advance, but Victoria cut her off. "I've been watching this flight carefully, Ms. Chen. I've observed how you interact with different passengers, and what I've seen is troubling. Very troubling." Sophia felt a flash of indignation. "Ms. Blackwell, with all due respect, I've been with Skyline Airways for 10 years. My service record is exemplary. I have never discriminated against any passenger." Victoria's expression hardened. "Your personnel file tells a different story. 2 customer complaints last year, both from white passengers. Coincidence?" Sophia was stunned. Those complaints had been dismissed after review. One from a drunk passenger she had refused to serve more alcohol, another from someone who had tried to upgrade without paying. Those complaints were investigated and found to be without merit, Sophia said, struggling to maintain her composure. That's a matter of interpretation, isn't it? Victoria reached into her bag and pulled out a tablet. As CEO, I've been reviewing cases like yours. Flight attendants who seem to have, shall we say, selective service standards. From the corner of her eye, Sophia could see Roger, the chief purser, hovering uncertainly at the edge of the cabin, clearly unsure whether to intervene when the CEO herself was involved. Several passengers were openly recording the confrontation on their phones. Ms. Blackwell, if you'd like to file a formal complaint, I respect that right. But perhaps we could continue this discussion in private? Sophia tried again. There's no need for further discussion, Victoria said coldly. What I've seen is enough. Ms. Chen, as Chief Executive Officer of Skyline Airways, I am relieving you of your duties, effective immediately. The words hit Sophia like physical blows, fired, mid-air, in front of an audience of premium passengers and colleagues. You can't, Sophia began, but Victoria interrupted. I absolutely can. Article 7, Section 3 of your employment contract gives executive management the right to suspend any crew member for serious violations of company policy, pending formal review. Discrimination is explicitly listed as such a violation. Victoria's voice was steel. Please surrender your crew credentials to Mr. Miller. You will remain in the crew rest area for the duration of this flight. We'll arrange for your return to San Francisco from London. Sophia stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. 10 years of dedicated service ended in a moment by a CEO with an agenda and a personal connection to a disgruntled passenger. This is wrong, Sophia managed to say, her voice barely audible. What's wrong is the treatment my daughter received, Victoria replied. Now your credentials, please. Under the watching eyes of the entire first-class cabin, including a smugly satisfied Williams, Sophia unclipped her company ID badge and handed it to Roger, who couldn't meet her gaze. Please escort Ms. Chen to the crew rest area, Victoria instructed Roger, and have someone collect her personal items from the crew stations. As Sophia followed Roger through the galley, legs moving mechanically, she heard Victoria addressing the first-class passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. As CEO of Skyline Airways, I want to personally assure you that we take instances of discrimination very seriously. The rest of her words faded as Sophia moved further away, her world collapsing around her at 37,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, with nowhere to run, and 7 more hours until landing. The crew rest area on the Airbus A350 was located above the main cabin, accessible by a small stairway hidden from passenger view. Designed for flight attendants to take their mandatory breaks during long-haul flights, the space featured 6 narrow bunks, minimal lighting, and just enough room to change clothes or read a book. Never in her decade of flying had Sophia imagined she would be confined here in disgrace. Roger had awkwardly deposited her in the space with a mumbled apology. I've got to get back to service, but I'm sorry, Sophia. My hands are tied. Now, alone, Sophia sat on the edge of a bunk, her body physically present while her mind replayed the public humiliation she had just endured. Her hands trembled slightly as the reality set in, not just fired, but accused of racial discrimination. In the airline industry, such an accusation was potentially career-ending. Other carriers wouldn't touch her. 10 years of perfect evaluations, glowing passenger testimonials and professional dedication, all potentially erased by one entitled teenager and her power-wielding mother. The worst part was the utter helplessness of her situation. Trapped in a metal tube hurtling across the Atlantic, she couldn't even leave the scene of her humiliation. For the next 7 hours, she would be a prisoner with no recourse, no ability to defend herself, and no one to advocate on her behalf. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. The door cracked open, revealing Jasmine Torres, her eyes darting nervously down the corridor before she slipped inside. I can't stay long, Jasmine whispered. They've reassigned duties and I'm supposed to be doing a cabin check. Are you okay? Sophia couldn't bring herself to answer the question honestly. What's happening out there? Jasmine bit her lip. It's bad, Sophia. Victoria's putting on a show of being the crusading CEO fighting discrimination. She's spending time in each cabin, talking to passengers, crew, Everyone's walking on eggshells. She accused me of discrimination because I wouldn't give her daughter a pre-ordered kosher meal, Sophia said, the absurdity of the situation hitting her anew. How is that racism? Jasmine glanced at the door again. Listen, there's something you should know. I've been with Skyline for 8 years, but before that, I worked briefly at Coastal Airways when Victoria was a VP there. Sophia looked up sharply. You know her? Not personally, but I know her reputation. She has a history, Sophia. In the 3 years she was at Coastal, 5 minority flight attendants were fired for customer service issues. 3 of them were Asian. A cold feeling spread through Sophia's chest. You think she targeted me? I don't know, Jasmine admitted, but this feels orchestrated. The way Lily stormed off, how quickly Victoria appeared with company policy citations ready, and now she's directing the captain to ensure there's paperwork ready for your official termination when we land. Can't the captain do something? This is his aircraft. Jasmine shook her head. He tried to suggest a formal review process back in San Francisco, but she pulled rank, said something about setting an example of decisive leadership and zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior. Sophia's mind raced. If Victoria had been planning to make an example of someone, she needed evidence, documentation. My tablet, she said suddenly. I logged the meal incident immediately after it happened, noting that Williams had pre-ordered the kosher meal. That proves I was following protocol. I'll try to get it for you, but Victoria's had all crew devices collected for review, Jasmine said. She's claiming she wants to check service records, but she's looking for anything she can use against me, Sophia finished. Jasmine nodded grimly. And there's more. That passenger, Jackson Williams, he's now sitting with Victoria in the business class bar area, having a very friendly conversation for 2 people who supposedly didn't know each other before the flight. The pieces began to fall into place in Sophia's mind. You think they planned this? That's insane. I don't know about planned, Jasmine hedged, but something's not right. Oh, and I noticed Lily filming parts of what happened on her phone. She seemed pleased with the outcome. Before Sophia could process this new information, the crew interphone buzzed. Jasmine jumped. I have to go. They're checking on all crew, she said, moving toward the door. I'll try to get back when I can. Stay strong, Sophia. Left alone again, Sophia pulled out her personal phone. No signal, of course. They were over the middle of the Atlantic, but she could still access basic functions. She opened her email app and began composing a message to herself, documenting everything that had happened with timestamps and details, planning to send it once they landed. As she typed, an alert from the aircraft's Wi-Fi system popped up. A standard message about being able to purchase internet access for $29.99. Sophia hesitated, then entered her credit card information. It was expensive, but right now, documentation was her only defense. Once connected, she opened her work email and forwarded the meal incident report she had filed earlier to her personal account, along with several passenger compliments from previous flights. If Victoria was building a case against her, Sophia needed to preserve any evidence that might help her defense. A noise at the door made her quickly lock her phone. Captain Wilson entered, his face grave. Sophia, I want you to know I argued against this action, he said quietly. In 30 years of flying, I've never seen a crew member suspended mid-flight without a proper investigation. Thank you for trying, Captain, Sophia replied. But what happens now? He sighed heavily. Ms. Blackwell has instructed our London station to have HR paperwork ready when we land. She's expediting the termination process. Can she do that without a hearing? Without union representation? She's citing special circumstances, public acts of discrimination requiring immediate action. The captain looked uncomfortable. She's also, well, she's having your industry certification flagged for review. Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. A flagged certification would make it nearly impossible to get hired by another airline. She's trying to end my career. The captain couldn't deny it. I've put in a call to our union rep in London. They'll meet the aircraft. That's the best I can do for now. After he left, Sophia returned to her phone with renewed urgency. Using the in-flight Wi-Fi, she began searching for information about Victoria Blackwell. News articles described her as a turnaround specialist brought in to improve Skyline's flagging profits. Several mentioned her tough stance on customer service standards and willingness to make difficult personnel decisions. Then Sophia found something interesting. A small industry blog post from 3 years ago mentioning a discrimination lawsuit filed against Victoria's previous airline by a former employee named Helen Kim, an Asian American flight attendant, who claimed she was fired without cause. The case had apparently been settled out of court with a non-disclosure agreement. As Sophia continued searching, a new email notification appeared from Skyline's HR department. The subject line read, "Urgent. Termination processing, Chen Sophia." It had been sent to all London-based HR staff, with the flight's purser copied. Victoria wasn't waiting for an investigation. She was ensuring Sophia would be processed out of the company the moment they touched ground. Suddenly, another notification popped up, this one from the airline's tracking system that all crew had access to. The flight path had been altered slightly. They were now scheduled to land at London Heathrow 30 minutes earlier than planned. Victoria was expediting their arrival. Sophia's mind raced. In less than 7 hours, she would land in a foreign country, stripped of her credentials, potentially blacklisted in the industry with no clear path to justice. Everything she had worked for was being systematically dismantled by a CEO with an apparent history of targeting minority employees. As she sat in the dimly lit crew rest area, thousands of feet above the ocean, Sophia Chen realized she was fighting for more than just her job. She was fighting for her entire future. And right now, Victoria Blackwell held all the power. The gentle hum of the aircraft engines provided the only sound in the crew rest area as Sophia contemplated her situation. An hour had passed since the captain's visit, each minute stretching painfully as she cycled through shock, anger, and fear. Her phone battery had dipped to 40% from her frantic research and documentation efforts, and she'd switched to power-saving mode to preserve what remained. A soft tap on the door jolted her from her thoughts. Expecting Jasmine, she was surprised when Marcus Johnson, the first officer, slipped inside instead. "I can only stay a minute," he said in a low voice. "I'm supposed to be checking weather patterns, but I had to see how you're holding up. As well as anyone who's been publicly fired and accused of racism mid-flight," Sophia replied, attempting a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marcus leaned against the narrow doorframe. "Listen, there's something you need to know. I wasn't going to say anything because it seemed like just industry gossip, but after what happened," he hesitated, glancing over his shoulder, though they were completely alone. Victoria Blackwell's husband, Richard Blackwell, used to be executive vice president at Skyline until about 18 months ago. "What happened to him?" Sophia asked. "He was forced to resign after a discrimination lawsuit. An Asian American financial analyst named Jennifer Wong claimed he passed her over for promotion repeatedly while promoting less qualified white employees. The company settled out of court, but it was widely seen as an admission of guilt." Sophia's mind raced with the implications. "So Victoria Blackwell has a personal grudge against Asian employees? I don't know if I'd go that far, but the timing is suspicious." Richard Blackwell's career was essentially ended by that lawsuit. 6 months later, his wife is hired as CEO of the same airline, and now she's publicly firing an Asian American flight attendant for alleged discrimination. Connect the dots. The revelation sent a chill through Sophia. This isn't about a meal service incident at all, is it? Marcus shook his head grimly. Industry blogs have been questioning her appointment from day one. Some analysts suspect she's been brought in specifically to change the company culture, make it more traditional. There have been whispers about using reverse racism claims to justify pushing out certain employees. "That's insane," Sophia whispered. "It's 2025, not 1955. "You'd be surprised how many executives still think that way," Marcus said. "But here's where it gets even worse. Victoria has requested that the air marshal on board monitor you as a potential security concern." "What?" Sophia stood up so quickly she nearly hit her head on the upper bunk. That's completely outrageous. She's claiming your erratic behavior after being suspended could pose a flight safety risk. It's a tactic, Sophia. If she can paint you as unstable as well as discriminatory, it strengthens her case for immediate termination without proper review. The calculated nature of Victoria's actions was becoming clearer. This wasn't an impulsive reaction to a perceived slight against her daughter. It was methodical character assassination. "I need more allies," Sophia said, more to herself than to Marcus. "Someone who witnessed what really happened." "Jasmine is discreetly talking to passengers who were in first class," Marcus told her. "Several saw the whole incident, including an elderly Japanese businessman who apparently asked Jasmine why you were being treated so unfairly." A flicker of hope ignited in Sophia's chest. Independent witnesses could be crucial to countering Victoria's narrative. "But we have another problem," Marcus continued. "Williams is now sitting with Victoria in the business class lounge area. They've been in deep conversation for over an hour. It doesn't look like a first meeting." "You think they knew each other before the flight?" "It's looking that way, and he's been sharing his version of the meal incident, which, according to the flight attendant serving them, paints you as dismissive of Lily while being overly accommodating to him because of his race." Sophia closed, her eyes fighting back a wave of nausea. "That's the exact opposite of what happened. He was making racist comments to me before Lily even asked for the meal. Your word against his. And guess who Victoria believes?" Before Sophia could respond, the aircraft interphone buzzed. Marcus grabbed it quickly. "This is First Officer Johnson." He listened for a moment, his expression darkening. "Understood. I'll return immediately." Hanging up, he turned to Sophia with urgency in his eyes. "The captain needs me in the cockpit. Victoria has requested a course adjustment to make an unscheduled stop in Reykjavik." "Iceland, why?" "Officially for a crew medical issue. Unofficially." Marcus didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what this meant. Victoria was planning to have Sophia removed from the aircraft before reaching London. "She can't just dump me in Iceland. According to international aviation regulations, if you're deemed a safety risk, the captain has authority to offload you at the nearest suitable airport. She's building that case now." Marcus moved toward the door. "I have to get back before they get suspicious. Jasmine said she'll try to come see you soon." As Marcus left, Sophia sat heavily on the bunk, the gravity of her situation sinking in. Victoria wasn't just trying to fire her. She was planning to strand her in a foreign country with no resources, no credentials, and no immediate way home. The level of vindictiveness was staggering. 10 minutes later, Jasmine slipped into the crew rest area, her face flushed with urgency. "We're diverting to Keflavik Airport in Iceland," she confirmed. "Estimated landing in 90 minutes. Victoria told the crew you're having a nervous breakdown and need to be removed for safety reasons." "That's a complete fabrication," Sophia protested. "We know that, but she's the CEO, and she's now instructed all crew to collect passengers, phones before landing, citing an unusual electromagnetic interference with the navigation systems. She's trying to prevent anyone from recording what happens in Iceland," Sophia realized, "or from keeping evidence of what already happened." Jasmine nodded. "Your incident report email was blocked by the company server, by the way. I tried to access it, but IT has already restricted your account." Panic threatened to overwhelm Sophia, but she forced herself to think strategically. "We need to find another way to preserve evidence. Did you speak with any passengers?" "Yes. An elderly Japanese man in seat 1A, Mr. Takahashi. He saw everything and was appalled by how you were treated. He said he'd be willing to provide a statement." Jasmine hesitated. "But there's something else. He mentioned seeing Williams and Victoria speaking together in the terminal before boarding. He remembered because they seemed to be arguing about something." This confirmed Sophia's growing suspicion that the entire incident had been orchestrated, but proving it would be challenging, especially now that Victoria was confiscating potential evidence and planning to remove her from the flight before reaching London. "I need to hide," Sophia said suddenly. "Not forever. Just long enough to think and gather whatever evidence I can." "Hide? Where?" "We're on an airplane. The business class lavatory on the port side. It's larger than the others and has that storage cabinet. If I'm not in the crew rest area when they come to escort me off in Iceland, it might buy me some time. Jasmine looked skeptical but nodded. I'll create a distraction when we begin our descent. But Sophia, what exactly are you hoping to find? Sophia thought for a moment. The original passenger manifest. When Lily was moved to first class, there must have been a record of who authorized that change. If it was Victoria, or someone connected. To her, that helps prove this was planned. Those records would be in the purser's tablet, Jasmine said. I might be able to access it, but it's risky. At this point, I have nothing to lose, Sophia replied. My career is already in jeopardy. If we don't find evidence that this was a setup, Victoria will make sure I never work in the airline industry again. As Jasmine left to return to her duties, Sophia sat back on the bunk, mentally preparing for what came next. She thought about contacting her family, but decided against it. Her parents had been so proud when she became a flight attendant at a prestigious international airline. The thought of telling them she'd been fired for alleged racism was too painful to contemplate. Instead, she focused on a different connection. Harold Winters, a Skyline board member she had helped during a medical emergency on a flight last year. He had given her his business card afterward, insisting she contact him if she ever needed anything. At the time, she had thought it a kind but empty gesture. Now it might be her only hope. Using the in-flight Wi-Fi, Sophia composed an email to Winters, concisely explaining the situation and requesting his intervention. She didn't know if he would receive it in time, or if he would even remember her. But it was a thread of hope in an increasingly desperate situation. As the aircraft began its gradual descent toward Iceland, Sophia gathered her limited belongings and prepared to make her move. Whatever happened in the next few hours would determine not just her professional future, but her entire life's trajectory. Against a powerful CEO with a personal vendetta, the odds seemed insurmountable. But Sophia Chen had never backed down from a challenge, and she wasn't about to start now. Have you ever been in a situation where you were falsely accused and felt powerless to defend yourself? Comment number 1 if you think Sophia should continue fighting against this injustice, or number 2, if you believe she should try to negotiate with Victoria for a less damaging exit. Hit that like button if you're rooting for Sophia to find the evidence she needs and subscribe to follow her journey as she faces this shocking betrayal. But the question remains, what will Sophia discover when she investigates the passenger manifest? And will her desperate email to board member Harold Winters be seen in time to make a difference? With the plane descending toward Iceland and Victoria's plan to abandon her there nearly complete, can anyone help Sophia before it's too late? The Airbus A350 began its descent toward Keflavik International Airport, the powerful engines changing pitch as the aircraft's nose dipped slightly. Outside the windows, the early morning Icelandic sky painted a dramatic backdrop of purple and orange hues against the rugged volcanic landscape below. Under normal circumstances, the view would have been breathtaking. For Sophia, hiding in the oversized business-class lavatory, it represented the ticking clock of her diminishing options. She had slipped out of the crew rest area during a brief period when Victoria was addressing the passengers about the medical emergency, necessitating their unscheduled landing. With Jasmine creating a distraction by accidentally spilling a drink tray near the galley, Sophia had managed to move undetected to her temporary hiding place. The lavatory was cramped but offered momentary sanctuary. Sophia leaned against the sink, checking her watch. According to the captain's announcement, they would be on the ground in approximately 20 minutes. Once they landed, Victoria would almost certainly have airport security remove her from the aircraft. She needed to act quickly. A soft knock at the door made her breath catch. "Maintenance check," came a whispered voice she recognized as Marcus's. Sophia cracked the door open, and the first officer quickly slipped a folded piece of paper into her hand, before walking away as though conducting a routine inspection. She closed and locked the door again, unfolding the note with trembling fingers. Williams and Victoria booked tickets together originally, found deleted reservation data, landing in 18 minutes, airport police waiting but unclear why. Be careful. The confirmation that Williams and Victoria had planned this together sent a surge of validation through Sophia. Her instincts had been right. But what good was this knowledge if she couldn't prove it or share it with anyone who could help? Another soft knock, this one with a distinct pattern. Jasmine's signal. Sophia opened the door just enough for her colleague to pass a tablet through the gap. Roger's device, Jasmine whispered. Password is his daughter's birthday, July 20th, so 0720. I can only leave it for 5 minutes before he'll notice it's missing. Sophia quickly entered the password, accessing the chief purser's system. She navigated to the passenger manifests, scrolling through the various versions saved throughout the booking process. Most airlines maintain these records to track changes and resolve disputes about seating arrangements or special requests. At first glance, everything appeared normal until she got to the manifest from 3 days prior. There it was. Jackson Williams and Victoria Blackwell had been booked together in first class, with Lily Blackwell in business class. Then, 12 hours before departure, their reservations were split and partially rebooked. Victoria moved herself to economy. Williams stayed in first, and Lily was initially in business before being upgraded to first class just before boarding. The pattern was clear. They had deliberately separated to create the conditions for the confrontation over the meal. But why go to such elaborate lengths just to target a random flight attendant? Sophia opened the notes section of Williams's passenger profile and found her answer. A special service request noted, passenger requesting Chen S as cabin attendant, if on duty rotation. They hadn't just planned the confrontation, they had specifically requested her. Before she could investigate further, the tablet pinged with an incoming message from Victoria to all crew members. Reminder, collect all electronic devices from passengers before landing. Critical for aircraft systems integrity. Sophia's blood ran cold. Victoria was attempting to eliminate any potential video evidence of what had transpired. She quickly forwarded the passenger manifest information to her personal email before closing the applications. As she prepared to return the tablet to Jasmine, another notification appeared. A message from an unfamiliar Skyline company addressed to Victoria. Security arrangements confirmed at KEF. Local authorities will assist with staff removal as requested. Documents prepared for immediate termination. They were ready for her in Iceland, not just to remove her from the flight, but to process her termination on foreign soil, where she would have even fewer protections or resources. A gentle tap on the door signaled Jasmine's return. Sophia handed back the tablet, whispering her findings through the narrow opening. We're starting our final descent, Jasmine warned. Victoria's instructed the senior crew to search for you when the seatbelt sign goes on. She's claiming you're emotionally unstable and need to be found before landing. I need more time, Sophia said urgently. Can you help me get to business class? There's an elderly Japanese passenger, Mr. Takahashi, who saw everything. If I can speak with him before we land. Jasmine shook her head. Victoria hasn't left his side for the past 20 minutes. I think she suspects he might be sympathetic to you. She's been very attentive, offering him complimentary upgrades on future flights. She's buying his silence, Sophia realized. Not successfully, Jasmine replied with a hint of a smile. He's been pretending not to understand her very well, but he told me in perfect English that he thinks this whole situation is, and I quote, disgraceful corporate bullying. This small ray of hope was interrupted by the captain's voice over the PA system. Cabin crew, prepare for landing. All passengers, please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. I have to go, Jasmine said. They'll notice if I'm not at my station. What will you do? Sophia's mind raced through her dwindling options. I'll return to the crew rest area. Hiding won't solve anything, and it might make me look guilty. But now I have evidence this was planned. I just need to figure out how to use it. As Jasmine hurried back to her position, Sophia carefully made her way through the dimly lit cabin, using the distraction of landing preparations to return to the crew rest area unnoticed. Once inside, she pulled out her phone to check if Harold Winters had responded to her desperate email. Nothing. The aircraft began its final approach to Keflavik, the engines growing louder as they descended through clouds toward the runway. Sophia braced herself against the gentle turbulence, her mind working furiously to formulate a plan. If Victoria had airport security waiting to remove her, she would have minimal time to state her case or present her evidence. A sudden thought struck her. Mr. Takahashi had seen Williams and Victoria together before boarding. If he had recorded any of the subsequent incidents on the flight, before Victoria's order to collect electronic devices, that could be crucial evidence. But how could she reach him with Victoria guarding him so closely? The gentle bump of touchdown jarred her from her thoughts. They had landed in Iceland. Within minutes, Victoria would send someone to escort her off the aircraft. Once removed from the flight, she would lose access to any potential witnesses or evidence. Sophia quickly composed text messages to both Marcus and Jasmine with everything she had discovered, setting them to send automatically once her phone detected a cellular network. If nothing else, she would ensure others knew the truth, even if she couldn't protect herself. As the aircraft taxied to its designated stand, Sophia heard footsteps approaching the crew rest area. This was it. Taking a deep breath, she stood tall, determined to face whatever came next with dignity. The door opened to reveal Roger, the chief purser, accompanied by a man in an airport security uniform. Roger couldn't meet her eyes as he said, "Sophia Chen, this officer will escort you from the aircraft. Ms. Blackwell has authorized your immediate removal and processing." "On what grounds?" Sophia asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "The paperwork cites discriminatory behavior and potential safety risk to ongoing flight operations," the security officer replied in accented English. "Please come with me. Now." As Sophia gathered her personal belongings, she noticed something unexpected. The officer wasn't wearing a typical Icelandic airport security uniform. His badge identified him as part of a private security firm. "Are you with the airport police?" she asked carefully. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face. "I am with security service contracted by Airline." This wasn't standard protocol for removing crew members, even in cases of misconduct. Airlines typically coordinated with official airport authorities, not private security firms. Victoria was going to extraordinary lengths to handle this outside normal channels. As Sophia was led through the business class cabin toward the exit, she caught sight of Mr. Takahashi watching her intently. Their eyes met briefly, and the elderly man gave her an almost imperceptible nod before raising his hand to reveal he was holding something small and black, a recording device, cleverly disguised as a luxury pen. Hope surged through Sophia. Someone had evidence, someone believed her, but would it be enough? And would she be able to access it before Victoria completed her plan to strand her in Iceland with a ruined career and reputation? At the aircraft door, Marcus stood with the captain, both looking deeply uncomfortable with the proceedings. As she passed them, Marcus whispered, "Check your email when you can." Board member responded. With those cryptic words echoing in her mind, Sophia stepped off the aircraft onto the boarding stairs, the crisp Icelandic air hitting her face as she descended toward the waiting terminal, and whatever fate Victoria Blackwell had arranged for her. Sophia's footsteps echoed through the sterile corridor of Keflavik International Airport as she was escorted by the private security officer. The morning sunlight streamed through massive windows, illuminating the empty terminal around them. Being rushed off the plane first meant most passengers were still on board, leaving the walkways eerily quiet. "Where are you taking me?" Sophia asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "To processing room," the security officer replied curtly. "For paperwork." Ahead, Sophia could see the main terminal area, and more importantly, a group of official-looking individuals in Icelandic police uniforms. Their presence was unusual for a simple medical diversion. As they approached, one of the officers stepped forward, his expression serious. "Is this the person from the aircraft?" he asked the security guard in English. "Yes, this is crew member being removed." The police officer studied Sophia carefully. "Your name is Sophia Chen?" She nodded, uncertain of what was happening, but sensing that these actual law enforcement officers hadn't been briefed on Victoria's version of events. "And you work for Skyline Airways?" "Yes, for 10 years, until about 3 hours ago, apparently," she replied. The officer exchanged glances with his colleagues before turning back to her. "We need to speak with you, but not about your employment status. We are looking for passenger Jackson Williams. He was supposed to exit the aircraft first." Sophia blinked in surprise. "Williams? Why are you looking for him?" That is police matter, the officer stated firmly, before addressing the private security guard. You may return to the aircraft. We will handle Ms. Chen from here. The security guard hesitated. But I have instructions to process her termination. That is not our concern. We have priority. The officer's tone left no room for argument. As the confused security guard retreated, Sophia found herself being led to a small conference room off the main terminal. Inside, another officer was setting up recording equipment. Ms. Chen, I am Detective Johnson with the Financial Crimes Unit, the first officer explained once the door closed. We have been tracking Mr. Williams for several months regarding a series of investment frauds across Europe. When his name appeared on the manifest for this diverted flight, we arranged to meet the aircraft. Sophia's mind raced. Williams was a wanted criminal. This added another layer to an already complex situation. Detective, I believe Mr. Williams and our CEO, Victoria Blackwell, are working together. They orchestrated an incident on board to have me fired. The detective's expression remained neutral, but he motioned for her to continue. Quickly, Sophia outlined the events of the flight, the meal incident, Victoria's public accusation and firing, and the evidence she'd discovered about their pre-existing relationship and deliberate booking changes. Why would they target you specifically? Janssen asked. I don't know for certain, but I've learned that Victoria's husband lost his position at Skyline following a discrimination lawsuit filed by an Asian American employee. I believe this might be some form of retaliation. The detective made notes before responding. Your situation is concerning, but our jurisdiction is limited to Mr. Williams's financial crimes. However, he paused, appearing to make a decision. Given that Ms. Blackwell may be involved with our suspect, we would be interested in any evidence connecting them. Hope flickered in Sophia's chest. I forwarded documents to my email showing they booked tickets together originally, and there's a passenger, Mr. Takahashi in first class, who saw them together before boarding and may have recorded parts of the incident. Detective Johnson nodded to his colleague, who left the room, presumably to intercept Williams. May I see this evidence? Sophia pulled out her phone, relieved to find she now had cellular service. As she opened her email, notifications flooded in, including one from Harold Winters, the board member she had contacted. The subject line read, "Urgent, do not sign anything." Opening it quickly, she read, Ms. Chen, I remember you well from Flight SL435 last year. Your professionalism during my medical episode was exemplary. I am deeply disturbed by your account and have contacted our legal department. I've also reached out to other board members. Do not sign any termination papers in Iceland. Victoria does not have unilateral authority for immediate termination without board review in cases involving senior staff. 10+ years. I will meet your flight in London. Preserve all evidence. Sophia showed the detective both this email and the forwarded passenger manifest documents. As he reviewed them, his radio crackled with a message in Icelandic. The detective's expression hardened as he responded. What's happening? Sophia asked when he finished. Mr. Williams is not exiting the aircraft. The captain reports he developed sudden illness and cannot be moved. We believe Ms. Blackwell is attempting to continue the flight with him on board. Meanwhile, Sophia's phone buzzed with a new notification, a social media alert. With growing horror, she opened it to find Fortune Fire racist flight attendant trending, accompanied by a selectively edited video clip showing her denying Lily the meal and Williams appearing to calmly explain the situation to Victoria. The clip had clearly been edited to remove his racist comments and Lily's entitled behavior. They're manipulating the narrative, Sophia said, showing the detective. This video has been edited. The full version would show what really happened. Unfortunately, social media judgments move faster than proper investigations, Janssen noted grimly. But this does suggest coordination between Williams and your CEO. A knock at the door interrupted them. Another police officer entered with an elderly Japanese man, Mr. Takahashi. This gentleman insisted on speaking with you, the officer explained. He says he has evidence relevant to your case. Mr. Takahashi bowed slightly to Sophia. Ms. Chen, I observed everything on the flight. When I saw that woman order crew to collect devices, I knew something was wrong. He held up the pen-like device she had glimpsed earlier. I record business meetings as habit. Today, it captures something else. The elderly man placed the device on the table and pressed a button. Clear audio began playing. Williams, is your daughter ready? Remember, she needs to demand the kosher meal specifically, Victoria. She knows the plan. Just make sure you've actually reserved it so Chen can't give it to her without breaking protocol. Williams, don't worry. Once Chen refuses Lily, you'll have your discrimination claim. The board won't be able to challenge your reorganization. Plans after that. Nothing like a public racism scandal to make them fall in line. Victoria. And you'll get your consulting contract once I have full control. The recording continued, capturing Williams' racist comments to Sophia, Lily's entitled demand, and Victoria's later manufactured outrage. Most damning was a quiet conversation after Sophia had been escorted away. Lily. That was easier than... I thought, did I do good, Mom? Victoria. Perfect, honey. We'll edit the video before posting. By the time we land, public opinion will force the board's hand on my diversity initiative, which will give me authority to restructure the entire cabin crew department without further approval. The recording ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. This is quite explicit, Detective Janssen said finally. Mr. Takahashi, would you be willing to provide this recording to both the police and Ms. Chen? The elderly man nodded firmly. I come from Japan, where respect is fundamental. What they did shows no respect, not for Ms. Chen, not for passengers, not even for their own company. I am honored to help truth prevail. While this evidence was being copied, Sophia checked her phone again and found messages from both Jasmine and Marcus. The aircraft was preparing to continue to London, with Victoria telling everyone that Sophia had been removed for making racist threats against Lily, a complete fabrication. She had also offered Sophia a settlement, admit to racial discrimination, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and receive 3 months severance. Otherwise, she would ensure Sophia was blacklisted throughout the industry. The audacity of the offer, combined with the new evidence, strengthened Sophia's resolve. She would not be bullied into accepting blame for something she hadn't done. Detective Johnson received another radio message, this one causing him to stand abruptly. Ms. Chen, the aircraft is requesting clearance to depart with Mr. Williams on board. We cannot legally hold the flight without arresting him, which requires proper procedure. You're going to let him leave? Sophia asked incredulously. No, the detective replied with the first smile she'd seen from him. I'm going to board the aircraft with a warrant. Mr. Williams may think he's escaping, but London Metropolitan Police will be waiting when they land. He paused. If you wish to continue to London to address your employment situation, I can arrange for you to travel with us. As the detective prepared to board the aircraft, Sophia's phone buzzed with an email notification from the Skyline press office. With trembling fingers, she opened it to find a draft press release, apparently sent to her by mistake. Skyline Airways announces zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. CEO Victoria Blackwell takes swift action. Following an incident of reverse racial discrimination against a minor passenger, Skyline Airways CEO Victoria Blackwell personally intervened to uphold the company's commitment to equality for all passengers. The press release went on to detail how Victoria had courageously confronted entrenched discriminatory practices and would be launching a company-wide initiative to re-examine hiring and promotion practices that may have unfairly favored minority candidates. The true agenda behind Sophia's public humiliation was now crystal clear. Victoria wasn't just targeting her. She was using this manufactured incident to reshape the entire airline's diversity policies, potentially affecting hundreds of minority employees. As Detective Janssen left to board the aircraft, Sophia forwarded the draft press release to Harold Winters with a simple message. Found the real motive. See attached. Within minutes, his reply came. Board emergency meeting called. Proceeding to London with police is your best option. We'll handle things. From our end. Sophia gathered her belongings, Mr. Takahashi's recording secure on her phone, and prepared to face whatever came next. The fight was far from over, but for the first time since Victoria had confronted her over the kosher meal, Sophia felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. The Icelandic wind cut through Sophia's uniform as she stood on the tarmac, watching the police escort Jackson Williams from the aircraft. Victoria Blackwell stood in the doorway above, her face a mask of controlled fury as she saw her accomplice being led away in handcuffs. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, Victoria's cold with hatred, Sophia's steady with newfound determination. Despite Detective Johnson's offer, complications had arisen. The flight to London would continue without Williams, but police procedures meant Sophia couldn't simply reboard as a passenger. The bureaucratic tangle would take hours to resolve, by which time the aircraft would be long gone. Victoria had seized this opportunity, instructing the ground staff to deny Sophia passage on any Skyline aircraft, effectively stranding her in Iceland. "I'm sorry, Ms. Chen," the detective said as they watched the boarding stairs retract from the Airbus. "We can take your formal statement now, but the arrangements for travel will have to wait until tomorrow at the earliest." "She wins again," Sophia murmured, watching the aircraft begin its taxi toward the runway. "Not necessarily," Janssen replied. "Mr. Williams is in custody, your evidence is preserved, and from what you've shown me, your board member is already taking action." Small consolations, Sophia thought as she followed the detective back into the terminal. The bitter reality remained. She was alone in a foreign country, her company credit cards deactivated, her career hanging by a thread, while Victoria continued to London as CEO, free to spin the narrative however she pleased. The processing of her statement took hours. By the time she emerged from the police station adjacent to the airport, afternoon had turned to evening. The detective had arranged a discounted rate at a nearby airport hotel, but even that reduced price would quickly deplete Sophia's personal savings. In her modestly appointed hotel room, Sophia collapsed onto the bed, physically and emotionally exhausted. She checked her phone. No further messages from Harold Winters. Her parents had called twice, probably having seen the viral video. She couldn't bring herself to call them back. Not yet. How could she explain that their daughter, who they had sacrificed everything to raise with dignity and respect, was now globally branded as a racist? Sleep eluded her as she tossed and turned, her mind replaying the day's events on loop. Around midnight, she finally gave up, opening her laptop to assess her situation more clearly. Her first shock came when she tried to access her Skyline employee portal. Account suspended flashed on the screen. Victoria had wasted no time. Her second shock came from her email inbox, flooded with notifications from social media platforms and news alerts, all referencing the trending hashtag, "Fire Racist Flight Attendant." The manipulated video had spread like wildfire, generating thousands of outraged comments from people who knew nothing about the actual circumstances. Sophia watched in horror as strangers dissected her every facial expression and movement, declaring her obviously racist and the face of airline discrimination. Even more disturbing were the airline industry forums, where anonymous sources claimed she had a history of problematic behavior and favoritism toward minority passengers. The smear campaign was comprehensive and devastating. Sophia forced herself to step away from the computer before despair overwhelmed her. She needed a plan, not panic. Taking a deep breath, she began to list her resources and options. Assets: Mr. Takahashi's recording, the passenger manifest evidence, Harold Winters' support, and potentially Jasmine and Marcus as witnesses. Liabilities: no return ticket, limited funds, deactivated company credentials, and a rapidly spreading defamation campaign. As she contemplated her next move, a notification pinged on her phone, an email from Jasmine, sent from her personal account. "Sophia, Victoria has launched a company-wide anti-discrimination initiative, with you as the unnamed example. She's scheduled interviews with travel industry publications for tomorrow. Marcus and I are walking a tightrope. She's watching crew who might be sympathetic to you. Some of the London-based union reps seem to be taking her side already. Be careful who you trust. We'll update when I can." This confirmed Sophia's fears. Victoria was wasting no time in cementing her version of events and using the incident as a springboard for her broader agenda. Morning brought new challenges. Sophia's attempt to book a flight to London using her personal credit card was met with an error message: insufficient funds. A quick check of her account revealed the truth. The emergency international roaming package and expensive in-flight Wi-Fi had nearly maxed out her credit limit. Venturing down to the hotel lobby, Sophia approached the receptionist, a young Icelandic woman with kind eyes. "Excuse me, I'm stranded here unexpectedly. Is there a less expensive place I could stay for a few days while I sort out my situation?" The woman, whose name tag identified her as Freydís, looked sympathetic. "The hostels in Reykjavik might be more affordable, but you would need to take the bus. May I ask what happened?" Something in her genuine concern prompted Sophia to share a condensed version of her ordeal. To her surprise, Freydís became increasingly indignant as the story unfolded. "This is not right," she declared when Sophia finished. "My brother is a shop steward for the Icelandic Flight Attendants Union. Perhaps he can help connect you with your airline's union representatives." This unexpected offer of assistance brought tears to Sophia's eyes. "That would be incredibly helpful. Thank you." Freydís immediately called her brother Eric, who agreed to meet Sophia that afternoon. In the meantime, she extended Sophia's hotel reservation at a deeply discounted distressed traveler rate, assuring her she could stay at least 3 more nights without draining her remaining funds. "This company, they cannot treat employees this way," Freydís said firmly. "In Iceland, workers have rights." By afternoon, Sophia had showered and changed into her spare clothes, trying to look professional despite the circumstances. Eric arrived promptly, a serious man with the same kind eyes as his sister. "I've contacted the International Flight Attendants Association," he explained after hearing Sophia's story. "They're very concerned about your case. This could set a dangerous precedent if a CEO can simply fire crew members mid-flight without due process." Hope flickered in Sophia's chest. "Can they help me get back to London or San Francisco?" "They're working on it. In the meantime, I've arranged for you to speak with Skyline's union representative in London via video call this evening." The news was the first positive development since landing in Iceland. Sophia spent the next few hours preparing her case, organizing her evidence, and rehearsing her explanation of events. At the appointed time, Eric returned with his laptop for the video call. The union representative, a woman named Margaret Wells, appeared on screen with the Skyline logo visible behind her. "Ms. Chen, I understand you've had a difficult situation," Margaret began, her expression professionally neutral. "I've reviewed the initial reports and spoken with crew members who returned on your flight." Sophia carefully laid out what had happened, including the evidence of Victoria and Williams's prior connection and Mr. Takahashi's recording. As she spoke, she noticed Margaret's expression growing increasingly uncomfortable. "This is certainly concerning," Margaret said when Sophia finished. "I'll need to consult with our legal team about next steps." "I'm stranded in Iceland," Sophia emphasized. "The company has deactivated my credentials and cards. I need to get to London to meet with board member Harold Winters." "Mr. Winters contacted you?" Margaret's surprise was evident. "Yes, he's arranged for an emergency board review of the situation." Margaret's demeanor subtly shifted. "I see. Well, let me see what I can do about arranging transportation. In the meantime, don't speak to anyone else about this matter, for legal reasons." After the call ended, Eric looked troubled. "She seemed hesitant." "I noticed that too," Sophia agreed. "But at least the union is involved now." The next morning, Sophia woke to an email from Margaret with flight information for a London-bound plane departing that afternoon. Not on Skyline, but on a partner airline. Relief washed over her. Finally, something was going right. She was packing her few belongings when her phone rang, an unknown number. "Ms. Chen, this is Victoria Blackwell." Sophia nearly dropped the phone in shock. "How did you get this number?" "I'm the CEO, Ms. Chen. There's very little about my employees I can't access when necessary." Victoria's voice was smooth, controlled. "I'm calling to offer you a way out of this unfortunate situation." "A way out? You created this situation. Perspective is everything, isn't it?" From my view, you discriminated against my daughter, creating a public relations crisis for our airline. From yours, you're the victim of some elaborate conspiracy." Victoria paused. "But what matters now is resolving this efficiently." "What are you proposing?" Sophia asked cautiously. "A clean break. Sign the separation agreement my legal team has prepared, which includes a non-disclosure clause and an admission of improper service judgment, and you'll receive 3 months severance pay plus neutral references for future employment." "You want me to admit to discrimination I didn't commit?" "I want this to go away, Ms. Chen. The alternative is much less pleasant. Without an agreement, we'll proceed with a formal termination for cause, which will include flagging your industry, certification for review. You'll never work for another major airline again." The threat was clear. Admit guilt or be blacklisted. "I have evidence that you and Williams planned this entire incident," Sophia countered. "Mr. Takahashi recorded your conversations." A moment of silence then. "An elderly foreign tourist with a recording device he wasn't authorized to use on our aircraft? That would never be admissible in any proceeding. Besides, our legal team has already prepared a response claiming any such recording would have been doctored." "The board might feel differently." Victoria laughed softly. "The board hired me to make difficult decisions and improve our company culture. One flight attendant's career is insignificant compared to the strategic direction of a global airline. Harold Winters doesn't seem to think so." Another pause. "Harold is one voice among 12. I have the support of the majority." Victoria's tone hardened. "You have until noon tomorrow to accept my offer. After that, we proceed with formal termination and certification review. Think carefully about your future, Ms. Chen." The call ended, leaving Sophia shaken. Victoria's confidence suggested she still held the upper hand, despite the evidence Sophia had gathered. Could she really have the board's backing for such unethical behavior? As Sophia headed to the airport for her London flight, her phone pinged with a news alert. Her heart sank as she read the headline. "Skyline CEO leads charge against discrimination. No tolerance for bias at any level." The article featured Victoria announcing a company-wide anti-bias initiative, citing a recent disturbing incident that had opened her eyes to persistent problems. Though Sophia wasn't named, the reference was clear. Victoria was controlling the narrative masterfully, positioning herself as a champion of equality while destroying Sophia's career. At the check-in counter, more bad news awaited. "I'm sorry, Ms. Chen, but your reservation has been canceled," the agent informed her. "That's impossible. I received confirmation this morning." The booking was canceled 30 minutes ago by the sponsoring organization. The union had withdrawn her flight. After thanking the agent, Sophia stepped aside and immediately called Margaret. "The reservation was canceled on higher authority," Margaret admitted, sounding genuinely regretful. "Victoria contacted our union president directly. I'm afraid my hands are tied. She threatened to blacklist me if I don't admit to discrimination," Sophia explained urgently. "She's trying to force me to sign away my rights. I understand your frustration, but this has become a complex legal matter. The union has to remain neutral until all facts are established." "Neutral? She fired me mid-flight without due process." "And that procedural concern is being reviewed. But the discrimination allegations are serious, Sophia. The video evidence is compelling. That video was selectively edited. I have proof this was a setup." Margaret sighed. "Look, my advice as your union representative is to consider the settlement. Fighting Victoria Blackwell could drag on for years with uncertain outcome. At least with severance you can move forward." The betrayal stung deeply. Even the union seemed to be falling in line with Victoria's version of events. As Sophia walked dejectedly back to the hotel, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar Icelandic number. "Ms. Chen, this is Detective Johnson. We need to discuss a new development in the Williams case. Can you come to the station?" When Sophia arrived, the detective's expression was grim. "We've received information that criminal charges have been filed against you in the United States." "What?" Sophia gasped. "That's impossible." "According to our liaison with American authorities, Ms. Blackwell has filed a report claiming you physically assaulted her daughter during the flight when removing her meal. That's a complete fabrication. There are dozens of witnesses who can confirm nothing like that happened. The detective nodded. I suspected as much. The timing is suspicious, coming immediately after Williams's arrest and your cooperation with our investigation. She's trying to discredit me as a witness, Sophia realized, and prevent me from returning to confront her. Perhaps, Janssen agreed, but we must follow procedure. I'll need a formal statement denying these allegations, and you'll need to remain in Iceland until we receive clarification from American authorities. Now Sophia was truly trapped, unable to leave Iceland, running out of money, abandoned by her union, and facing false criminal charges. Victoria had systematically cut off every avenue of escape or support. Back in her hotel room, Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, contemplating her dwindling options. Victoria's deadline loomed. Admit to discrimination by noon tomorrow, or face permanent industry blacklisting. The falsified assault charges added another layer of pressure. How could she fight those from thousands of miles away? For the first time since this ordeal began, Sophia allowed herself to cry, the tears burning hot trails down her cheeks. She had dedicated 10 years of her life to Skyline, maintaining perfect professionalism even when faced with racist remarks and difficult passengers. Now, her career, reputation, and future hung by a thread, all because she had followed company policy about a pre-ordered meal. As darkness fell over Iceland, Sophia Chen faced her darkest hour. Alone in a foreign country, her resources nearly depleted, seemingly abandoned by those who should protect her, she had to make an impossible choice: surrender to injustice or continue fighting against increasingly insurmountable odds. Have you ever been in a situation where it seemed like the whole world was against you? Comment number 1 if you think Sophia should keep fighting despite the mounting obstacles, or number 2 if you believe she should accept Victoria's settlement to salvage what's left of her future. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're on the edge of your seat wondering what Sophia will do next, and subscribe for more stories of courage in the face of overwhelming injustice. The question now becomes, with Victoria's systematic destruction of every support system Sophia might have, can anyone help her fight back? And with false assault charges now hanging over her head, what new evidence could possibly turn the tide in this desperate battle for truth and justice? Dawn broke over the volcanic landscape of Iceland, pale light filtering through the thin hotel curtains as Sophia stared at the ceiling. She hadn't slept. Victoria's noon deadline loomed just hours away, and the weight of the decision pressed on her chest like a physical burden. Sign away her dignity and admit to discrimination she never committed, or face a ruined career and possibly even false criminal charges. Her phone buzzed, another email notification. Expecting more bad news, she was surprised to see it was from Marcus, sent from his personal account. Sophia, don't give up. Something big is happening. Victoria is in full damage control mode on the flight back. Half the crew is questioning the official story. I've secured footage from the aircraft security cameras that clearly shows you never touched Lily. Jasmine and I are gathering statements from passengers who witnessed everything. Stay strong. Justice is coming. The message brought tears to her eyes, tears of relief, of gratitude that not everyone had abandoned her. But questions remained. Would it be enough? And would it arrive in time? A knock at her door startled her. Opening it cautiously, she found Freitas, the hotel receptionist who had been so kind to her. Ms. Chen, I have news, she said urgently. My brother Eric says someone has leaked Victoria Blackwell's employment records from her previous airlines. It's all over aviation forums this morning. Sophia quickly pulled up the industry message boards on her laptop. Sure enough, an anonymous account had posted detailed information about Victoria's hiring and firing history across 3 airlines. The pattern was unmistakable. At each company, Victoria had terminated multiple minority employees, particularly Asians, using various pretexts from performance issues to customer complaints. More significantly, the leak included internal memos suggesting Victoria had specifically requested personnel files for Asian American flight attendants within days of starting at Skyline. Sophia's name had been among those flagged for service standard review. The whistleblower remained anonymous, identified only as Skyline Insider, but their message was clear. This isn't about one meal incident. This is systematic discrimination disguised as corporate leadership. Hope flickered in Sophia's chest. The narrative was beginning to shift. Victoria's carefully constructed image as a champion against discrimination was showing cracks as her own history came under scrutiny. Her phone rang, another unknown number. Ms. Chen? This is Harold Winters. I apologize for the radio silence. The board has been in emergency session since your email. Mr. Winters, Sophia breathed, relief flooding her voice. Victoria has given me until noon to sign a confession or face blacklisting. She's also filed false assault charges against me. We're aware. That latest move overplayed her hand. His voice was steady, reassuring. The board has requested all security footage from the flight, which Victoria initially tried to block, citing privacy concerns for her minor daughter. That raised immediate red flags. Do you have the footage now? Yes, and it clearly shows no physical contact between you and Lily beyond normal meal service. More importantly, Mr. Takahashi reached out to several board members directly. His standing as CEO of Takahashi Electronics gives his testimony considerable weight. For the first time in days, Sophia felt a glimmer of real hope. Victoria claims she has the board's majority support. She did, Winters acknowledged, until the whistleblower documents emerged this morning. Now the board is deeply concerned about potential legal liability if her pattern of discriminatory terminations continues under Skyline's banner. No one wants a class action lawsuit. What should I do about her deadline? Ignore it completely. We need you to present your evidence directly to the board via video conference. Can you be ready in 3 hours? Sophia straightened her shoulders. Absolutely. After ending the call, Sophia turned to find Freitas smiling. Good news at last? I think so. I need to prepare for a board presentation. Is there somewhere private I could work? The hotel's business center is empty this morning. I'll make sure you're not disturbed. For the next 2 hours, Sophia meticulously organized her evidence, creating a clear timeline that showed the premeditated nature of Victoria and William's scheme. She included screenshots of the original booking records showing they had reserved tickets together, notes from the passenger manifest indicating they had specifically requested her as their flight attendant, and transcripts from Mr. Takahashi's recording. As she worked, more developments unfolded on aviation forums and industry news sites. Jackson Williams had been formally charged with investment fraud in 3 countries. More damaging for Victoria, financial journalists had uncovered payments from Williams's consulting firm to a shell company owned by Victoria's husband. The conspiracy was unraveling thread by thread, but Victoria still held considerable power as CEO. Sophia couldn't afford to underestimate her opponent. At the appointed time, Eric arrived to escort Sophia to a private room with better video conferencing equipment. On the screen, she could see 9 members of Skyline's 12-person board of directors, their expressions ranging from skeptical to concerned. Ms. Chen, thank you for joining us under these difficult circumstances, began Grace Howard, the board chairwoman. We understand you dispute the circumstances of your suspension and have evidence suggesting improper conduct by our CEO. The board is prepared to hear your account. For the next 45 minutes, Sophia presented her evidence methodically, her voice steady despite the stakes. She walked the board through each phase of the incident, from the suspicious pre-flight booking changes to Victoria's retaliatory false assault charges. What I experienced was not a misunderstanding about meal service, Sophia concluded. It was a calculated attempt to create an incident that could be framed as discrimination, allowing Ms. Blackwell to advance a broader agenda of reshaping the airline's diversity policies and personnel. The board members asked pointed questions, probing for inconsistencies but finding none. As the session was wrapping up, an unexpected interruption occurred, a message that Lily Blackwell wished to address the board. Confused murmurs spread among the directors. Ms. Blackwell's daughter wants to speak? Howard asked, clearly surprised. Yes, ma'am, replied the assistant managing the call. She's quite insistent. After a brief discussion, the board agreed to hear from Lily. The screen split to reveal the teenager, looking far less composed than she had on the flight. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her expression troubled. "Lily," Howard began gently, "the board understands you were involved in an incident on Flight 272. Would you like to share your perspective?" Lily glanced nervously off camera before facing the screen. "I need to tell the truth. My mother planned the whole thing." Her voice trembled slightly. "She told me exactly what to do: demand the kosher meal, claim discrimination if I was refused, film the interaction but only certain parts." The confession stunned the board members into silence. Sophia watched in disbelief as Victoria's own daughter dismantled the elaborate setup. "This isn't the first time," Lily continued. "She's used me before in her corporate schemes, playing roles, recording conversations, whatever helps her get ahead. But this time, seeing Ms. Chen treated that way, knowing we ruined her career for nothing." She wiped away a tear. "I can't be part of it anymore." "Lily, are you saying your mother deliberately orchestrated this incident?" Howard asked carefully. "Yes. She and Mr. Williams planned everything before the flight. I have text messages." Lily held up her phone, displaying a conversation with her mother that outlined the entire scheme, including instructions on what to say and how to act outraged when denied the meal. "Why would your mother do this?" another board member asked. "She needed a public incident to justify her anti-discrimination initiative, which was really about getting rid of employees she doesn't want. She's been obsessed with rebalancing the workforce since Dad lost his job over that lawsuit." As Lily's testimony continued, Sophia felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness that Victoria had involved her own daughter in such a destructive scheme. The teenager was clearly struggling with guilt and conflicted loyalty. The board called a brief recess to digest this unexpected testimony. When they reconvened, Howard addressed Sophia directly. "Ms. Chen, in light of this new information and the evidence you've presented, the board agrees that your suspension appears to have been without merit. We will need to conduct a formal investigation, but in the interim, we are reinstating your employment status and credentials effective immediately." Relief washed over Sophia. "Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Additionally, we will arrange for your immediate return to San Francisco, with all expenses covered. The false assault charges will be addressed by our legal department." As the meeting concluded, Sophia felt the weight of the past few days finally beginning to lift. Victoria's carefully constructed plan was collapsing under the weight of truth, but one question remained unanswered. What would happen to Victoria herself? She got her answer the next morning as she prepared to leave for the airport. Breaking news alerts flooded her phone. Skyline Airways CEO suspended pending board investigation. Corporate conspiracy exposed. How a CEO manufactured a discrimination incident. Aviation industry shocked by allegations of systematic bias against Asian employees. The tide had turned completely. The same social media platforms that had condemned Sophia days earlier were now analyzing Victoria's history of questionable terminations and calling for a full investigation into hiring practices at all airlines she had led. As Sophia boarded the Skyline flight to San Francisco, upgraded to first class by direct order of the board, she reflected on how quickly fortunes could change. 4 days ago, she had been publicly humiliated and fired mid-air. Now Victoria Blackwell was facing the very public reckoning she had tried to orchestrate for others. Justice was finally taking flight. 3 days after returning to San Francisco, Sophia sat in the waiting area outside Skyline Airways' executive boardroom, her hands folded neatly in her lap to hide their slight trembling. The polished mahogany doors remained firmly closed as the emergency board meeting, now in its 4th hour, continued inside. Occasionally, raised voices filtered through, though the thick walls muffled the specific words. Across from her sat Jasmine and Marcus, both summoned to provide testimony. They exchanged occasional glances but mostly maintained professional silence. The corporate headquarters felt different than Sophia remembered from her previous visits. Tense, with employees speaking in hushed tones as they passed the boardroom. Everyone knew something momentous was unfolding behind those doors. Sophia's phone buzzed with yet another news alert. Since the story had broken, aviation and business media had been covering it relentlessly. The latest headline read, "Skyline. Stock drops 6% amid CEO scandal and discrimination allegations." The financial impact of Victoria's actions was mounting. Beyond the stock price decline, travel advocacy groups were calling for boycotts until the airline demonstrated concrete changes to prevent similar incidents. Corporate accounts were pausing their contract renewals, and online booking data showed a sharp decline in new reservations. The boardroom doors finally opened, and Grace Howard emerged, her expression grave. "Ms. Chen, we're ready for you now." Inside, the tension was palpable. 11 board members sat around the massive table, with one chair conspicuously empty, Victoria's. At the far end, a video screen showed a live feed of Victoria and her legal team in a separate conference room, her expression icy but composed. "Ms. Chen," Howard began formally, "the board has reviewed all available evidence concerning the incidents on Flight 272 and subsequent events. We've heard testimony from crew members, passengers, and earlier today, from Ms. Blackwell herself." Sophia nodded, maintaining her professional demeanor despite the circumstances. "Ms. Blackwell has presented her version of events," Howard continued, claiming that while certain aspects may have been misinterpreted, she acted in good faith based on her observation of what she perceived as discriminatory behavior. On the screen, Victoria's expression remained impassive. "However," Howard's tone hardened, "the board finds this explanation unpersuasive given the substantial evidence of premeditation, including the coordinated booking changes, specific request for you as cabin attendant, and documented coordination with Mr. Williams, who we now understand has a long history of corporate fraud." A silver-haired board member Sophia didn't recognize leaned forward. "Ms. Chen, we owe you an apology for what transpired. No employee should be subjected to such treatment, particularly one with your exemplary service record." "Thank you, sir," Sophia replied, emotion threatening to break through her carefully maintained composure. Howard gestured to a stack of documents. "We're particularly concerned about evidence suggesting this incident was part of a broader pattern, specifically the internal memo identifying Asian American employees for service standard review within days of Ms. Blackwell assuming her position." Victoria's voice suddenly came through the speakers, sharp and defensive. "That memo was part of a standard operational review. Any suggestion of racial targeting is completely unfounded and potentially defamatory." "Ms. Blackwell, you'll have your opportunity to respond formally through counsel," Howard cut in firmly. "At this time, we're addressing Ms. Chen." The rebuke silenced Victoria, though her glare intensified. "Ms. Chen," Howard continued, "the board has unanimously voted to offer you immediate reinstatement at your previous position with full back pay and benefits. Additionally, we're prepared to offer compensation for the emotional distress and reputational damage you've suffered." Relief washed over Sophia. "I appreciate that, Madam Chairwoman." "There's more," Howard added. "Given your experience and demonstrated integrity under extraordinary pressure, we would like to offer you a position on our newly formed Ethics and Employee Advocacy Committee, reporting directly to the board. Your perspective would be invaluable as we work to ensure nothing like this happens again." The offer stunned Sophia. It represented not just reinstatement, but a significant advancement, one that would place her in a position to help protect other employees from similar experiences. "I would be honored," she replied sincerely. Howard nodded with approval, before her expression grew serious again. "Before you accept, you should be aware that Ms. Blackwell has made certain threats regarding your return." On the video screen, Victoria leaned toward her microphone. "If the board reinstates Chen against my recommendation, I will consider it a direct undermining of my authority as CEO. The operational consequences will be entirely on your heads." Howard seemed unfazed by the threat. "Ms. Blackwell, the board is well aware of your position. We are also aware of the 19 discrimination complaints filed against airlines under your leadership over the past 5 years, information you failed to disclose during the hiring process." Victoria's expression flickered with momentary uncertainty before her composure returned. Those complaints were without merit and resolved appropriately. "Through confidential settlements with non-disclosure agreements," corrected another board member. Hardly a transparent resolution. The exchange confirmed what Sophia had suspected. Victoria's history of discrimination was far more extensive than initially revealed, and the board was now fully aware of the liability she represented. Howard turned back to Sophia. "Ms. Chen, there's one final matter. Ms. Blackwell has offered a substantial settlement package if you agree to leave the company voluntarily and sign a non-disclosure agreement covering all aspects of this incident." Sophia wasn't surprised. Victoria was still trying to control the narrative and prevent the full story from reaching the public. "With respect, Madam Chairwoman, I'm not interested in being silenced," Sophia replied firmly. "What happened to me could happen to others if the underlying issues aren't addressed openly." Howard nodded, a hint of approval in her eyes. "Very well. Ms. Blackwell, the board will now continue its deliberations regarding your status as CEO. You and your legal team may wait in the conference room." Victoria's face tightened with barely contained fury before the video feed was muted. Howard then addressed Sophia once more. "Ms. Chen, your reinstatement will be effective immediately. Our PR team has prepared a public statement clearing your name and acknowledging the company's failure to follow proper procedures. We'll need you to review it before release." The meeting concluded with board members individually expressing their support for Sophia. As she left the boardroom, she found Jasmine and Marcus waiting, their expressions eager for news. "I've been reinstated," Sophia told them, still processing the reality herself, and offered a position on a new ethics committee reporting to the board. Their congratulations were heartfelt, but brief, interrupted by a commotion from the direction of the conference room where Victoria was waiting. Raised voices and the sound of something being slammed against a wall filtered down the corridor. "She's not taking it well," Marcus observed quietly. "Would you?" Jasmine replied. "Her entire carefully constructed plan has collapsed. If the board removes her as CEO, her career is essentially over." Sophia felt no satisfaction in Victoria's distress, only relief that the truth had prevailed, and a commitment to ensuring such abuse of power couldn't happen again. As they walked toward the elevators, her phone rang. Harold Winters. "Sophia, I wanted to personally congratulate you. The board's vote on Victoria was decisive, 11-1 for immediate termination. The official announcement will come this afternoon." "Thank you for believing in me," Sophia replied sincerely. "When everyone else was accepting Victoria's version of events, you were willing to question it." "Truth matters," Winters said simply. "Now there's a lot of work ahead. Victoria's discriminatory approach may have affected far more employees than just you. We need to examine every termination and demotion during her tenure." As Sophia ended the call, she felt the weight of this new responsibility. Her ordeal had exposed deeper institutional problems that would require sustained effort to address. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in days, it was clear. Later that evening, as Sophia finally returned to her apartment, news alerts flooded her phone with the official announcement: Skyline Airways board terminates. CEO Victoria Blackwell following discrimination investigation. The accompanying statement outlined the board's findings in carefully worded but unmistakable terms. Victoria had engaged in conduct inconsistent with company values and legal obligations, including actions that unfairly targeted employees based on protected characteristics. As night fell over San Francisco, Sophia opened her laptop to find hundreds of supportive messages from colleagues, passengers she had served over the years, and even strangers who had followed her story. The hashtag #OurJusticeForSophia was trending, replacing the harmful one Victoria had engineered. Justice had been served, but Sophia knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, not just for her career, but for creating meaningful change within an industry where discrimination could no longer hide behind executive authority. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she would finally rest, secure in the knowledge that standing firm for truth had been worth every difficult moment. 2 weeks after Victoria Blackwell's termination, Skyline Airways headquarters remained in a state of transition. An interim CEO had been appointed, while the board conducted a thorough search for permanent leadership. Throughout the building, there was a palpable sense of uncertainty mixed with cautious optimism as employees adjusted to the dramatic changes. Sophia had spent these weeks settling into her new role on the Ethics and Employee Advocacy Committee. Her small but functional office on the executive floor, a stark contrast to her previous lack of dedicated workspace, symbolized the shifting power dynamics within the company. Today, she was preparing for perhaps the most challenging meeting of her new position, an interview with Lily Blackwell. Following her shocking testimony to the board, Lily had retreated from public view. Victoria had lost custody temporarily due to evidence of emotional manipulation and involving her daughter in potentially illegal corporate schemes. Now living with her father, Lily had requested this meeting through her therapist, citing a need for closure. At precisely 10 a.m., the receptionist announced Lily's arrival. The teenager who entered Sophia's office bore little resemblance to the entitled, aggressive girl from the flight. This Lily appeared smaller somehow, her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, her expression hesitant rather than demanding. "Thank you for agreeing to see me, Miss Chen," she said, quietly, taking the offered seat. "I appreciate you coming forward with the truth, Lily," Sophia replied, keeping her tone neutral but not cold. "That couldn't have been easy." Lily studied her hands for a moment before looking up. "I need to explain about the flight, about everything. Not to excuse what happened, but so you understand it wasn't just about you." "I'm listening," Sophia said. "My mother," Lily began, then paused to collect herself. "My mother has been using me in her corporate games since I was 12. At first it seemed like fun, like we were secret agents on missions. She'd have me pretend to be a customer to test employees or record conversations with her competitors' staff. The manipulation of a child for corporate espionage was disturbing enough, but Lily continued with an even more troubling revelation. After my dad lost his job because of that discrimination lawsuit, something changed in her. She became obsessed with fighting back against what she called the diversity agenda. She said companies were pushing out qualified white executives to meet quotas, and she was going to prove how dangerous that was. Sophia maintained her professional demeanor despite her shock. "And that's where the flight incident came in?" Lily nodded. She and Mr. Williams had it all planned. They'd been working together for months. The goal wasn't just to get you fired. It was to create a high-profile reverse racism incident they could use to launch a complete overhaul of Skyline's diversity policies. By making it look like an Asian employee had discriminated against a white passenger, Sophia said, the full scope of the scheme becoming clearer. Exactly. They needed a victim who was clearly white and sympathetic, me, and a minority employee with a perfect record who couldn't be dismissed as just a bad worker. They specifically chose you because you had the highest customer satisfaction ratings among Asian American flight attendants. The calculated nature of their selection process sent a chill through Sophia. How many other employees were targeted? "You were the third attempt," Lily admitted. "The first two didn't work because the employees didn't react the way my mother needed. They just gave in to whatever I demanded, so she couldn't claim discrimination. You were different because you followed the rules exactly." Lily reached into her bag and removed a USB drive. "This contains all the text messages between my mother and me about the setup, plus recordings of her conversations with Mr. Williams, where they discussed targeting other minority employees after they succeeded with you." Sophia stared at the small device containing such damning evidence. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because I need to make this right," Lily said, her voice breaking slightly. "And because there's more you need to know. This wasn't just about Skyline. My mother and Mr. Williams were creating a template they planned to implement at other airlines. They called it the Corporate Culture Correction Initiative. The implications were staggering. A coordinated effort to systematically remove minority employees from multiple airlines under the guise of addressing reverse discrimination. It was never about a meal, Lily continued. That was just the trigger they needed. Once they had the incident on camera, selectively edited of course, they would use it to justify reviewing every decision that had promoted or hired a minority candidate over the past 5 years. How far did the planning go? Sophia asked. They had investors ready to back them, people who believed in their vision of restoring merit-based advancement, which was just code for pushing out diversity hires. Lily's disgust at her own involvement was evident. There are names, contacts, meeting dates, all on that drive. As the interview continued, Lily revealed more details about Victoria's network of like-minded executives across multiple industries, all sharing the common goal of rolling back diversity initiatives they viewed as threats to traditional corporate hierarchies. "When did you decide you couldn't be part of it anymore?" Sophia asked. Lily's eyes welled with tears. "When I saw your face as my mother fired you. You looked broken. And for what? Following the rules? Doing your job well? It hit me that I was helping destroy real people's lives for my mother's twisted crusade." The teenager wiped her eyes before continuing. "The night before the board meeting, I found an email from my mother to Mr. Williams discussing their next targets. 3 more Asian employees at Skyline and 2 at other airlines, with pictures, personal information, everything. They were treating it like a hunting expedition. That's when I knew I had to stop it." Sophia allowed a moment of silence before responding. "Thank you for your honesty, Lily. What you've shared will help ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else." "What will happen now?" Lily asked, suddenly looking very young and vulnerable. "The evidence you've provided will be reviewed by our legal team and likely shared with authorities investigating Mr. Williams' other activities," Sophia explained gently. "Your mother may face additional consequences depending on what's discovered." Lily nodded, resigned. "I know. My therapist says I need to accept that my actions and my mother's actions have consequences, even if I'm trying to make amends now." As their meeting concluded, Lily hesitated at the door. "Ms. Chen, I know saying sorry isn't enough for what I did, but I am truly sorry, and I'm trying to learn from this. My dad has enrolled me in a cultural sensitivity program, and I'm working with my therapist on recognizing the privilege I never saw before." Sophia appreciated the teenager's efforts toward genuine growth. "That's a good start, Lily. Understanding our impact on others is something we all have to learn." After Lily left, Sophia secured the USB drive in the company safe and called an emergency meeting of the ethics committee. The evidence Lily provided would have far-reaching implications, not just for Skyline, but potentially for the entire airline industry. Later that afternoon, as she presented her findings to the committee and legal team, the gravity of what they'd uncovered settled over the room. This hadn't been an isolated incident of one biased executive abusing her power. It was a coordinated attempt to systematically dismantle diversity initiatives across multiple corporations. "This goes beyond employment discrimination," noted the company's chief legal counsel. "There are potential RICO implications if we can prove this was a coordinated conspiracy across multiple companies." As the meeting concluded, Harold Winters pulled Sophia aside. "The board is going to announce your appointment as Chief Diversity and Ethics Officer tomorrow. After seeing how you've handled this situation, including your compassionate approach to Lily, we're convinced you're the right person to lead our corporate culture rebuild." The promotion was unexpected, but felt right. Sophia had experienced firsthand the damage caused by discrimination and abuse of power. Now she would have the authority to implement systemic changes to prevent similar situations. That evening, as news broke of Victoria Blackwell's indictment on charges of conspiracy and corporate fraud, Sophia reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple meal service decision at 37,000 feet. What Victoria had intended as a career-ending setup had instead become the catalyst for Sophia's advancement and an industry-wide reckoning with discriminatory practices. Justice had prevailed, but the work of creating lasting change was just beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges in transforming corporate culture, but Sophia Chen was more than ready to meet them. 6 months had passed since the incident that had changed everything. Skyline Airways had undergone a remarkable transformation, with new leadership committed to ethical practices and genuine inclusivity. Sophia Chen, now firmly established as Chief Diversity and Ethics Officer, had implemented comprehensive reforms that were being studied by other airlines as a model for the industry. The Victoria Blackwell scandal, as it had come to be known in aviation circles, had prompted a broader examination of hiring and promotion practices across the sector. 3 other airlines had discovered similar patterns of discrimination and taken corrective action. Williams had pled guilty to multiple fraud charges and was cooperating with authorities, his testimony implicating several executives who had participated in the Corporate Culture Correction Initiative. Victoria herself was awaiting trial, having pled not guilty despite the mountain of evidence against her. Her legal team had attempted to portray her as a misunderstood reformer, but the release of her recorded conversations with Williams had made that position untenable. Most recently, she had been spotted in conservative media circles, positioning herself as a victim of cancel culture while promoting a book about her experiences. Today, however, Sophia wasn't thinking about Victoria. She was focused on her first flight since the incident, not as a crew member, but as a passenger traveling to Chicago for a conference on diversity in transportation. Although her new executive role kept her primarily on the ground, she had felt it important to occasionally experience Skyline service as a customer would. As she settled into her business class seat, Sophia couldn't help but recall how different her last flight had been. The memories still brought a twinge of anxiety, but she had worked through much of the trauma with a therapist specializing in workplace PTSD. "Ms. Chen?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. "I thought that was you." Sophia looked up to find a familiar face, Mr. Takahashi, the elderly Japanese passenger whose recording had been instrumental in exposing Victoria's scheme. "Mr. Takahashi, what a wonderful coincidence," Sophia said warmly, genuinely pleased to see the man who had helped save her career. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the empty seat beside her. "Of course." As he settled in, Mr. Takahashi smiled. "I've been following your progress in the business press. Your reforms at Skyline are most impressive." "I couldn't have done any of it without your help," Sophia replied sincerely. "Your recording was crucial evidence." The elderly man waved away her gratitude. "In my 76 years of business travel, I have witnessed many injustices. Most times I remained silent, telling myself it wasn't my place to interfere. But watching what happened to you..." He shook his head. "Some things demand action." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft gasp from the aisle. Sophia turned to find a young woman in a Skyline uniform staring at them with wide eyes. Her name tag identified her as Lily Blackwell. The teenager had changed dramatically since their meeting 6 months ago. Gone were the designer clothes and a entitled demeanor, replaced by a standard airline trainee uniform and an expression of nervous determination. "Ms. Chen," Lily greeted her formally. "I didn't realize you would be on this flight." Sophia recovered from her surprise. "Hello, Lily. I didn't know you were working for Skyline." "I'm in the cabin crew apprenticeship program," Lily explained, her cheeks flushing slightly. "After everything that happened, I wanted to understand what it's really like to serve others instead of just demanding service." Mr. Takahashi observed the exchange with interest but remained tactfully silent. "That's quite a change from your previous ambitions," Sophia noted, recalling how Lily had once spoken of attending an elite business school and following her mother into executive leadership. "My therapist suggested I needed practical experience with the careers my mother taught me to look down on," Lily replied. "It's been humbling and educational." Before Sophia could respond, the lead flight attendant approached. "Lily, you're needed for the safety equipment check." She then recognized Sophia. "Ms. Chen, we didn't realize you were traveling today. Is everything satisfactory?" "Everything is perfect, thank you," Sophia assured her, not wanting to create any special attention. As Lily excused herself to attend to her duties, Mr. Takahashi chuckled softly. "Life has a remarkable way of coming full circle, doesn't it? The daughter becomes what the mother despised." "Lily is trying to find her own path," Sophia said carefully. "It can't be easy growing up with Victoria Blackwell as your moral compass." Throughout the flight, Sophia observed Lily working diligently alongside the regular crew. The teenager performed her tasks with careful attention, if not yet the fluid grace of experienced flight attendants. When she came to take their drink orders, her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained professional. "Would you care for anything to drink, Mr. Takahashi? Ms. Chen?" "Just water for me, please," Sophia replied. "I would like the special cherry blossom tea if available," Mr. Takahashi requested. Lily checked her tablet. I'm sorry, sir. That tea is only available on our Asian routes. Would you prefer green tea instead? That would be fine, thank you. As Lily moved to the next row, Mr. Takahashi smiled. She handled that well. No drama about unavailable options. She's learning, Sophia agreed. When meal service began, Sophia couldn't help but watch with particular interest. The memory of the kosher meal incident remained vivid, but today's service proceeded smoothly. Lily moved methodically through the cabin, carefully following procedures, and double-checking special meal requests against the passenger list. When they landed in Chicago, Sophia remained seated as other passengers disembarked. Mr. Takahashi bid her farewell with a respectful bow before joining the exit queue. As the cabin emptied, Lily approached hesitantly. Ms. Chen, may I speak with you for a moment? Of course. Lily took a deep breath. I wanted to thank you for not making things awkward during the flight. My supervisors don't know about our history. Only HR and the training director are aware. Your past doesn't define your future, Lily, Sophia said gently. We all deserve the chance to grow and change. My mother calls me twice a week, Lily confided unexpectedly. She still believes she was right about everything. She doesn't understand why I'm doing this. Sophia considered her response carefully. Some people find it easier to cling to their beliefs than to admit they were wrong, even when the evidence is overwhelming. She wants me to testify on her behalf at the trial, Lily continued, her expression troubled. To say I was manipulated by her enemies into turning against her. What will you do? Tell the truth, Lily said simply. Even if it means she never forgives me, I can't live with more lies. Sophia felt a surge of respect for the teenager's courage. That's a difficult choice, but I think it's the right one. After my apprenticeship ends, I'm applying to college, Lily added. I want to study ethics and organizational psychology. Understand why systems allow people like my mother to rise to power, and how to create healthier workplace cultures. That sounds like a worthwhile path, Sophia replied, genuinely impressed by the transformation in someone so young. If you ever need a reference or mentorship, my door is open. Lily's eyes widened in surprise. You would do that? After everything? 6 months ago, I was given a second chance to rebuild my career. It would be hypocritical to deny you the same opportunity to build yours on better foundations. As they parted ways at the terminal, Sophia reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them both to this moment. What had begun as a manufactured conflict over a meal had evolved into something neither Victoria Blackwell nor Jackson Williams could have anticipated. A catalyst for positive change throughout an industry and a profound transformation in both victims and participants. Sophia's presentation at the Chicago Conference on Diversity in Transportation was scheduled as the closing keynote on the final day. As she took the stage, facing an audience of industry executives, HR professionals, and policy experts, she felt a moment of déjà vu. The same apprehension she had experienced stepping onto Flight 272 6 months earlier, unaware of how it would change her life. Good afternoon, she began, her voice steady and clear. 6 months ago, I was a flight attendant with a decade of experience and an unblemished service record. Today, I stand before you as Skyline Airways Chief Diversity and Ethics Officer, a position created in the aftermath of what the media dubbed the Blackwell incident. My journey from cabin crew to corporate executive was neither planned nor pleasant, but it revealed systemic issues that extend far beyond one airline or one discriminatory CEO. For the next 40 minutes, Sophia detailed the reforms Skyline had implemented. Anonymous reporting channels for discrimination claims, review panels that included diverse representation from all levels of employment, transparent promotion criteria, and mandatory bias training for executives and managers. But procedures and policies alone cannot create inclusive cultures, she emphasized. What happened at Skyline wasn't just a failure of one individual, it was a failure of systems that allowed bias to flourish unchecked. Victoria Blackwell didn't arrive at our airline and suddenly develop discriminatory tendencies. She brought them with her, having previously exercised them at other companies that either didn't notice or didn't care. The audience, which had been taking notes and occasionally nodding, grew more attentive at the direct challenge to industry practices. The Corporate Culture Correction Initiative, that targeted minority employees across multiple airlines, wasn't created in isolation. Sophia continued. It thrived because our industry has historically treated diversity as a numbers game, rather than a fundamental value. When leadership sees inclusion as a quota to be reluctantly filled rather than a strength to be cultivated, the door opens for those who wish to systematically dismantle progress. She concluded with a call to action that extended beyond procedural changes. We need to examine not just who we hire, but who we elevate to leadership, what values they embody, and how they exercise power. The ultimate protection against discrimination isn't just better policies, it's creating cultures where such behavior becomes unthinkable, rather than merely punishable. The standing ovation that followed was gratifying, but Sophia found more meaning in the thoughtful questions and genuine commitments to change that emerged during the discussion period. Real transformation would take time, but the industry appeared ready to begin the work. As attendees filed out of the conference hall, a familiar face approached, Harold Winters, who had apparently slipped in during her presentation. "Powerful message," he said, his expression approving. "The board will be pleased to hear how well you represented Skyline." "Thank you for your support throughout all of this," Sophia replied. "I'm not sure I would have found the courage to fight back without your intervention." Winters shook his head. "You had the courage. I merely provided an opportunity for it to be seen." He glanced at his watch. "Our return flight leaves in 3 hours. The new CEO would like to meet with us before tomorrow's board meeting to discuss implementing your recommendations across our international operations." As they walked through the terminal toward their gate hours later, Sophia noticed a crowd gathered around a television monitor. Breaking news banners flashed across the screen as a somber-faced reporter delivered an update. In a stunning development in the Victoria Blackwell case, prosecutors have announced additional charges of witness tampering and obstruction of justice, following alleged attempts to pressure her daughter into providing false testimony. Winters shook his head sadly. "Some people never learn, or can't accept when they've lost," Sophia added. Their flight back to San Francisco boarded without incident. As Sophia settled into her seat, she found herself thinking about Lily Blackwell. The teenager had made the difficult choice to stand by the truth, despite immense pressure, a courage that deserved recognition regardless of her earlier role in the scheme. Midway through the flight, Sophia pulled out her tablet and drafted an email to Skyline's training director, recommending Lily for the company's college scholarship program. The girl's journey from entitled accomplice to conscientious employee represented exactly the kind of transformation Sophia hoped to encourage. Throughout the company, the ability to recognize past mistakes, take responsibility, and commit to better choices moving forward. As the aircraft began its descent into San Francisco, Sophia gazed out the window at the lights of the city shimmering against the darkening sky. 6 months ago, she had been ejected from an aircraft in Iceland, her career apparently finished, her reputation in tatters. Now she was returning home as an executive and industry speaker, with the authority to create meaningful change. The path between those 2 points had been neither straight nor easy. It had required courage, allies, evidence, and no small amount of luck. Not everyone facing workplace discrimination would have such resources or outcomes. That reality fueled Sophia's commitment to creating systems where justice didn't depend on having a recording device or a sympathetic board member, where fairness was built into the foundation rather than added as an afterthought. The gentle bump of touchdown brought her back to the present moment. As passengers around her reached for their belongings and prepared to disembark, Sophia remained seated for a moment longer, savoring the normalcy of a completed flight, something she would never again take for granted. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, implementing reforms, changing entrenched attitudes, and continuing the work of building a truly inclusive culture. But today, as Flight 889 from Chicago to San Francisco completed its journey without incident, Sophia Chen allowed herself to acknowledge a simple truth that had sustained her through the darkest moments of the past 6 months. Justice, like aviation, required both careful systems and human vigilance. Sometimes turbulence was inevitable, but with proper navigation and sufficient courage, one could always find clear skies ahead. The aircraft door opened, and Sophia Chen, once a flight attendant unjustly fired mid-air, now an executive helping reshape an industry, gathered her belongings and stepped confidently toward whatever the future might hold. The story of Sophia Chen's journey teaches us several powerful lessons about justice, courage, and systemic change. First, it demonstrates that discrimination often hides behind seemingly legitimate policies and procedures. Victoria didn't openly express racist views. She manufactured a situation where following protocol could be twisted to appear discriminatory. Second, the narrative highlights how privilege and power can be weaponized. Victoria used her position as CEO not just to target one employee, but to orchestrate a broader campaign against diversity initiatives. This reveals how discrimination can evolve from individual bias to systematic oppression when left unchecked. Third, we learn the importance of evidence and allies. Sophia survived her ordeal because people like Mr. Takahashi, Jasmine, Marcus, and Harold Winters were willing to stand up for truth. Without their support and crucial evidence, Victoria's false narrative might have prevailed. Perhaps most importantly, the story shows that true change requires more than just removing bad actors. Sophia recognized that Victoria was a symptom of deeper problems within corporate culture. Real transformation demanded examining the systems that allowed discrimination to flourish and rebuilding them with inclusion as a fundamental value rather than a reluctant obligation. Finally, Lily's journey reminds us that people can grow and change. Even those who participate in discrimination can learn, take responsibility, and become part of the solution when given the opportunity and guidance to do better. What would you have done in Sophia's position? Would you have had the courage to fight back against such powerful forces? Or would you have taken the settlement to protect your future? Let us know in the comments below. Has this story made you think differently about workplace discrimination? Hit that like button if you believe in standing up against injustice in all its forms, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that explore complex social issues. Share this video with someone who needs to understand how discrimination can hide behind corporate policies and procedures. Together, we can create workplaces where everyone is truly valued for their contributions. Thank you for watching this journey of resilience and transformation. Remember, as Sophia discovered, sometimes the path to justice isn't straight or easy, but with courage and integrity, we can overcome even the most daunting challenges.